Your readership, carrying on with the elements that you need to include, is your readership as well. What I mean with readership is this aimed at school pupils from 6 to 8? So you know that their reading capability would be different from that of, for example, a grade 4 learner or a grade 5 learner. Also, will it be in English, but maybe more plain language English because it's aimed at second and third language English speakers? Or is it more a sophisticated read with someone with a strong academic background, although it can even be a trade book, but something that's more of a sophisticated read? Yes, that challenges you intellectually rather than just, tongue in the cheek, humorous, maybe very accessible English or whatever language you'd like to publish in. Once again, remember age groups for kids. There are different milestones, there are different reading habits, there are different developments in terms of reading and what they're capable of and not. Your genre, fiction, non-fiction. You have to mention the sub-genres as well. So for example, you say business sciences, that's awesome, but is it just going to be a macro context of business sciences, or is it business sciences that focuses on business models and strategies? If it's a communication textbook, will it focus on marketing strategies and social media? Or, if you have something that's a little bit more specific, try and include that. Try and be as specific as possible. Now, with your content, further down, you also have to include things like themes, ideas, your plot summary, or your table of contents. With non-fiction books, obviously, there will always be a table of contents. So that is to divide all the chapters into specific themes and topics so that the reader can basically read it as they want. It's not necessarily that it has to be chronological, or if you want to refer back, that's important. Your content also, remember, with academic textbooks, they will always have an index so that you can, it's for referencing purposes and just if you quickly have to look up something or a concept. Now with trade, usually a fiction, there aren't usually a table of contents that introduces the chapters. It's not uncommon, it's not that it never happens, but it's usually not, a typical thing to do unless you have a very unique and creative approach. In that sense, if you can't really produce a table of contents, I would like you to just include a basic plot summary. So you don't have to include every single thing and all of the characters and all of that. Basically tell me what you would write on the blurb of this book. For example, this is a story about a young girl, struggling with her race in a very white community, and it's a coming of age story about finding true identity, loving yourself, and self-acceptance. And the main character would be this age, and she goes through various struggles and adventures and make friends along the way. Right, just so that I can see the gist of it. But if you want to go more into detail with that, you're more than welcome to. If you are writing another book where also non-fiction, but it is not that specific, or you haven't really thought about it in too much detail, just give me an overview of the themes or the topics. Say, for example, this book will be a collection of essays about young leaders in a post-democratic South Africa. Things may include the rise of the EFF, leadership skills in youth camps, I don't know, things like that, if you catch my drift. It's important that you look at who your author could, and this can also still change, but it's very important that you link your author with your content, because remember, you are now coming up with this idea, so you are commissioning this book. Therefore, you also need to go and find a suitable author that would basically do the best job in telling the story. So for that purpose, you need to go and research authors that publish in this specific field, even if they're with other publishers, just as long as I can see that you are actually thinking about who would fit this kind of content and book and target audience best. Then your extent and features. That is very much more like a technical aspect. That would much more be, is it hardcover? Is it soft cover? Is it an ebook? Because remember, you can use any kind of format as long as it's still regarded as a book. Hardcover, that's fantastic, but then you have to motivate. Is this a special edition? You can also break it up a little bit and say, I'll print 500 special editions in hardcover and a special embossed cover with a jacket, you know, dust jacket, and then I'll have the regular 1,000 copies that would just be regular paperback. Yes, or is it a collector's item? Will you have the first 20 that are collector items? Is it a soft cover? Is it an ebook? But all of these need to be motivated. And I think you also need to tell yourself, you know, ask these questions now. But then in your market research, it's the best way then to test these with your target audience and actually see how they perceive it or think about it. Your page extent is important. It may seem like a really silly thing to include, but page extent, the reason I'm asking this is later on it's going to become a factor in your costing. But once again, look at different books that are, you know, look at books that are similar to the one that you are commissioning. Because all of these have a standard page extent. Yes, it might be a little bit over or a little bit less, but there's an average, all right? So if you look at all, say for example, you look at 7 novels, more or less they'll have the same kind of page extent as long as yours is average or in between that. If you have a longer page extent, once again, you need to motivate it because people are used to specific standards and that is what they base their expectations on. And then, are there any special features? Are there any extra illustrations, or do you include beautiful illustrations from an award-winning illustrator? Are you using a famous, are you using a famous photographer? Or other elements, you know, does it take you to a game? Does it take you to something extra? I don't know, think a little bit out of the box in this regard and see where you end up. Right, think about those special features. Is there a QR code that takes you to extra information about characters and about their lives? Is there, I don't know, something like with a children's book? You remember the Willy Wonka from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Maybe there is a sweetie coupon in your hidden in 500 books. So, you know, I don't know, think out of the box, think about something that can really be interesting and have a special effect on your specific book. So section B is about the publishing house. This is a little bit more straightforward. So you give the background of the publishing house. It's usually by, you know, you'll find this at About Us, or you read press releases, or you go and look on Google and see whatever you can find about this publishing house. Look at their editorial policy. Now here it gets a little bit tricky because a lot of the information is not stated exactly as the question is formulated. So you have to deduce from whatever is available on the website, what you can see from their catalog, what you've read in the news about them, maybe watch YouTube and see if there are any videos that they published. These kinds of things you need to use to formulate your own opinion about their editorial policy. So you need to know who they are, what they stand for. Yes,